this is James Corbett of CorbettReport.com, and I'd like to welcome you back to The New World Next Week, the video series where we explore all the news that's unfit for print. And joining me, as always, is my good friend and the co-host, James Evan Pilato of MediaMonarchy.com. James, thank you once again for joining me today.
Thank you, man.
All right, so how are things in Portland today?
Things are amazingly sunny and beautiful. It's always funny. We're always the contrarian opposite. When the rest of the country is covered in snow, it's 50-some degrees here. But then once everyone else gets sunny, we'll be back in the gloomy doldrums, I'm sure.
I hear you. Well, it's nice and sunny here in Japan, but still pretty cold. So hopefully we'll be warming up soon. At any rate, let's get into today's three stories, and today we're going to be covering some media memes, which I guess is something that you often cover on MediaMonarchy.com. But the first one that I wanted to take a look at this week was an article that I just posted to the Corbett Report recently, and that's under the headline, Sex Pistols, Smashing Pumpkins members discuss HAARP, GM Foods, Illuminati. And this is an article that I wrote based on an interview that appeared on IamRogue.com. And IamRogue.com features, I guess, a daily show with Steve Jones, one of the co-founders of the Sex Pistols. And he, I guess, talks to various celebrities and hosts his own show. And recently he talked to Billy Corgan, the founder of the Smashing Pumpkins. And their conversation was surprisingly interesting insofar as it almost immediately became on the subjects of some of the things that we talk about on our websites, which is the biochemical manipulation of humanity and some of the things that are being done to basically keep people unhealthy, and it being done on purpose for an agenda. And that was an extremely interesting interview for a number of reasons. So I decided to write an article about that, and people can go check that out on CorbettReport.com. But the gist of it is some of the things they talk about are HAARP and how it may be being used as a weather modification technology. They talk about GM foods and how they're demonstrably not healthy. They talk about who's behind the scenes and why they're doing this, and even Billy Corgan even talks about the engineered end of national sovereignty and the bringing in of a North American Union. He talks about the engineered economic collapse and how that might be playing into the hands of certain elite interests, and all sorts of other very interesting things. And I don't write about this and I don't talk about this because I think celebrities are important or godlike, or we should necessarily care about their pronouncements. But I do talk about this because, as I say in my article, these things are important if only because celebrities are a sort of bellwether, a sort of something that we can look to in our society as where is the general trend of society going. Because we know that a large mass of society is sort of looking to these celebrities as part of their pop culture memes and things to go by. So if celebrities start talking more and more about these types of things, and if this starts to end up in more forms of art, well, what does that say about our society, and what type of discussion is taking place on a societal level that's being left out of the 6 o'clock news and things that are being thrust on us by the corporate media? So that's kind of my take on why this is important. But James, what do you think? What do you think about these pronouncements from various celebrities that we've seen increasingly over the years on these types of subjects?
It's sometimes dangerous. You can see situations such as the Dixie Chicks. If you speak out politically, you have people say, just shut up and sing. We don't care about your political beliefs. But I find it really, it's like folks tailor their lives in so many ways after celebrities. But when the media says you should get mad at what, the Dixie Chicks said, or what Charlie Sheen says, or any of these folks, I find it fascinating. The interview with Steve Jones and Billy Corgan, I highly recommend it. It's amazing to see this kind of stuff, come around.
That's right. And also I think for people who have followed Billy Corgan's work over the years, they know that he tends to be one of the more articulate rock stars. So it's interesting to hear this stuff discussed. And again, yeah, I don't worship celebrities, and I don't particularly care about their political beliefs. But when they start to reflect a general trend in society, I think that's important to note, and important to bring awareness to people who may actually do care about what they're celebrity heroes think. So certainly, I don't know about yourself, but certainly if Steve Jones, Billy Corgan, if you're listening and you'd like to talk about this on a more in-depth level, by all means, the Corbett Report is open for discussion. And moving right along, story number 2. James, I understand that recently you had the chance to appear on KUFO in Portland. Tell us about that experience.
Just a couple of nights ago, Sunday night, I had the opportunity with my good friend Clyde Lewis of GroundZeroMedia.org and also Alex Ansary of Outside the Box, which is a television show here on cable access here in Portland, and he also has a show on Oracle Broadcasting. Clyde Lewis recently got picked up by KUFO, which is 101.1 here in Portland, Oregon, for a Sunday night show, Ground Zero, 10 to midnight here in Portland. He invited myself and Alex Ansary onto the show to essentially talk about the police state. Is it coming or is it already here? It was so much fun to do, and it was easily, the largest radio station I've ever been on. KUFO is, I believe, 50,000 plus watts. It beams out all over, not only the Portland metro area, but all throughout the state. I believe it reaches up into Washington, and we even took some calls from Northern California. Just such an amazing opportunity, and the basis of our conversation goes to the recent declaration from Dennis Blair, Obama's national intelligence director, ultimately saying that it's all right for us to assassinate U.S. citizens abroad if they're deemed to be, terrorists. That was the basis of our conversation, and the entire episode is available for download with a huge thanks to Glenn at CascadiaPublicRadio.org. Cut out the commercials. It's all right there for you. It's a just under 2-hour show. So it's myself and Clyde Lewis and Alex Ansary, which I think is a huge breakthrough in the info war.
I think so, too. It really is an incredible listen, and I certainly hope people will download and listen to it as I did. And I think, it's a very, very interesting conversation and a lot of good information in there, especially to pass around to others. So I certainly hope people will check that out. And I guess recently we've all been a little bit more involved in other forms of media. Myself also, I've been on CHUO FM in Ottawa last week. I was interviewed for the Truth Frequency Radio, which is an internet online radio broadcast, which is going to be coming out, tonight if you're watching this on February 18th. So we're just being involved in more and more of this, and that brings us, I guess, to our third story, which is an interesting conversation that we had the pleasure to have recently with Richard Grove. And James, why don't you talk a little bit about this and introduce it for the people out there?
Well, just a few weeks ago, myself and you, James Corbett, and our friend Richard Andrew Grove of, most recently, PeaceRevolution.org, the new podcast series. Folks out there should know Richard Grove from not only TragedyAndHope.com, but, of course, the creator of the legendary 9/11 Synchronicity podcast. Richard Grove has always been one of my favorite people, and I've always his message just resonates, and he's not, trying to be your leader. He's not trying to be a sort of media celebrity. Just everything that he has researched and that he has put out just has the ring of truth, and it's just, I don't know, in a way I'm kind of at a loss for words. I've always really looked up to Richard Grove. So to have this conversation between the three of us was really amazing. So you do have this posted up on CorbettReport.com, and we're calling this Signal to Noise, a three-way conversation on the media and the message. I believe Richard Grove has also referred to it as educating ourselves to live versus amusing ourselves to death. And we basically talk about the media, its effect on society, and how we can all engage in sharing a viable alternative to the establishment media. Or, as I always like to quote Jello Biafra, don't hate the media, become the media.
That's exactly right, and I have to say it was an incredibly interesting conversation to take part in, and I think that does come across if people are listening to it out there. So I certainly hope people will take the time to download and listen to it, because it's truly a fascinating conversation. And you're absolutely right. The Richard Grove's message is so powerful, and he articulates it so well that I think people will really get something out of that. So I certainly hope people will stay tuned to that. And also he has a film that's coming out, that has just come out. Why don't you tell people a little bit about that as well?
His new project that was directed and put together by Paul Verge of Divergent Films is called 2020 Hindsight, Censorship on the Frontline. It has been put up on YouTube. The audio is the third episode in the aforementioned peacerevolution.org podcast. And there is an amazing DVD on the way that's going to be available with a $10 donation. And so many more things coming down the pike, James. And I think we're both really excited about some of the things that are coming soon that we're also going to probably discuss and become more involved with in the coming days and weeks.
I know I am excited, and I know that the true alternative media is going to overtake and completely demolish the old corporate media. So awesome. Well, again, thank you again so much, James.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.